don't want this to sound kind of overdone or cringy, but I so frequently watch whenever the press briefings are going on, Karoline Leavitt, and think, again, I know this is kind of like a overused phrase, but have you no shame? Have you no shame? How is this not? I would be so embarrassed on the brazen lies. Yeah. But also just when she comes out and with complete confidence says something that either Trump just contradicted or he's about to contradict, and he constantly embarrasses her by them just not, or she embarrasses herself or they're each other, where they're not on the same page. And I've never seen an administration this disjointed, where they're out here saying this and the other person says this, and then you look back at this person and say, why'd you say that? The latest example is on this UK trade deal. We keep being told by advocates that this is the deal. They got it. It's done. It's achieved. But then we'll go away. But Trump said that the details haven't been fully fleshed out. So it's not finished, is it? And Leavitt says, no.
Why did the White House announce this deal with the UK before all of the details were finished?
That's not true, actually. I saw the fact sheet. I saw the deal as well before the president brought all of you in the Oval Office in the effort of transparency. You had the president and the prime minister on the phone talking to all of you directly about how this was a great deal, a phenomenal deal, and discussions will continue. But as I spoke to our Ambassador Greer yesterday, this is how trade deals work. You set an initial agreement.
Okay, so the question was, why announce it before all the details are in place? The answer could have been, because we accomplished something great with what we've agreed to. Now we're going to flesh out more details, but it's worth the American people knowing about the huge milestone of an agreement we've already laid out. Now that's silly because this deal wasn't as significant as they sold it as, but that would have worked as an answer, right? But instead she goes, that's actually not true that all the details haven't been fleshed out. Okay, well, let's have Trump debunk himself what she just said.
Form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways. The final details are being written up in the coming weeks. We'll have it all very conclusive, but the actual deal is a very conclusive one, we think.
So we're working out the details. He said it, and she said that's not true. We're just quoting Trump. It reminded me of when she goes out and goes, the president has asked and answered this. There will be no tariff extension. And if it were in a show, you would have like, at that moment, knock, 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 and Trump opens up the door. There's an extension, because the timing was so quick where Trump came out to announce there would be a delay or a pausing of the tariffs after she said no.
Elena.
Hi, Karoline. It's clear the president has gotten the world's attention with these tariffs. Is he considering at all potentially holding off on imposing some of them before the deadline, or maybe later, reversing them because he's having these negotiations and having these good talks with other leaders?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He said he's not considering an extension or a delay. I spoke to him before this briefing. That was not his mindset. He expects that these tariffs are going to go into effect. And you said something very important, Elena.
A few moments later, we are proud to announce that we're pausing almost all of the tariffs. Why does he do that to her? Why doesn't she? I guess they don't plan. They're so discombobulated within. I guess that's the only way you can produce moments and contradictions like that, is that she literally doesn't know from one moment. It's not that in many cases she is lying, but it's not that in every case she's lying. Sometimes I just don't think Trump knows until right before he just decides, I don't know, pause them all, or any other major decision. I don't know, we're going to slap 100% tariff on movies. Now, I want to show you all this clip because I don't have much sympathy for Karoline Leavitt. Obviously, she chose this for herself. She's dishonest, and that should be judged. But I'm definitely not envious of her having to make sense of and then deliver in more coherent language Trump's announcements.
With respect, are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal because you're a president who needs a result at a difficult time?
I think that it's a great deal for both parties. It's for us. We're opened up. I didn't know how closed it was. Quite closed, the market, as you know, the UK. And it opens up a tremendous market for us. And it works out very well. And a lot of a lot of assets. You see the chart, and those are tremendous assets. But we've been trying, and when you say why us, meaning your country, we've been trying for years, and they've been trying for years to make a deal, including when I was in the, first term. It would always be people talking, but they weren't getting it done. But for 25 years before that, they were trying always to make a deal, a very significant deal. I actually, until I looked at the numbers, I didn't realize this is a very conclusive deal, but we think we can grow it even from that. But this is a maxed out deal, not like you said it. You said it really incorrectly. This is a maxed out deal that we're going to make bigger.
All right, Karoline, go tell the press this, right? We finished the deal, but we need to figure out the details. But all the details are figured out because it's conclusive. But we need to work out the specifics and the particulars of the completely finished conclusive deal. And it's maxed out, but we want more. We want more than max. Go, explain that to the press, Karoline. Go. So I'm not envious of that position, which is why she shouldn't hold it. But it leads to some pretty embarrassing moments where she has to, you're trying to make sense of something that's senseless, right? And see, it really does make me lose faith in people when I see people so confidently. And if you didn't know the meaning of what they were saying, just how they're delivering it is so compelling and so confident. And then you actually dive into the meaning and you're thinking, how does a human so confidently say things that are so detached from reality or contradictory to their boss? Republican Senator John Barrasso got asked about Trump's "you should only have 2 dolls, you greedy little girls," and listen to his defense of him.
I want you to listen to a part of my interview with President Trump when he talked about what this could mean for supplies. Take a listen.
I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
Senator, what do you say to people who hear those words and feel like the president is telling them to ration their goods?
Well, the president, I think, is very effective at using the bully pulpit, and he is using it, I think, to show strength and leadership of America. A week ago, you would have never foreseen the discussions going on in Switzerland this week between our trade representative, our Secretary of Treasury, and China. We wouldn't have foreseen the deal with Great Britain. We wouldn't have seen the call for the ceasefire and Putin agreeing to have peace talks. The president is very effective at using the bully pulpit. And I've been traveling.
They just don't even make an effort. They don't even try to answer the question. I think Trump's great with the bully pulpit, which is why Putin keeps not accepting peace terms. We hyped up this insignificant deal with the United Kingdom, but we still have a 10% baseline tariff on them. And Trump backed down on his China threats, and they're going to negotiate. It's ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as an Oklahoma superintendent saying, yeah, we're going to teach kids in schools the big lie about the 2020 election.
Why would you want Oklahoma students exposed to thoroughly debunked election conspiracy theories in the classroom?
Well, look, I've seen all those headlines too, and here's the reality. Look, President Trump should have won the 2020 election. You look at things like the ballot dumps, you look at the mail-in ballots, you look at the voter fraud, you look at the manipulation by the media in foreign countries, and look, what we've got in the standards are facts. We want critical thinking students, we want critical thinking Americans. We want them to look at the data, look at the statistics, and come to their own conclusion.
This was such an absurd. I guess his title is the Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Instruction. But this was so wild, it led to Snopes doing a fact check. Because so many people were fact check, is this real? There's no way Oklahoma is actually mandating that they learn about election lies. Yeah. This wasn't a fact check false, though. It was a fact check true. This is actually happening. Snopes says, fact check, yes, Oklahoma's new academic standards say to teach students 2020 election fraud myths as fact. Not, let's present. Here, I don't know what grade this is starting at, but here, fourth graders, here's a bunch of election data that you don't have any idea what it is. Go see if you can find discrepancies. No, it would be a teacher saying, there's very good reason to believe that Trump had this wrongfully stolen from him. And it goes through the claim, posts like this, next school year, thousands of high school students, I guess high school in Oklahoma, will be required to learn about Trump's debunked claim that the 2020 election was tainted by fraud. And these were called propaganda claims. But then Oklahoma's new social studies standards for high school students, which take effect in the 2025-2026 school year, do in fact require students to learn about so-called discrepancies in the 2020 election. The updated guidelines list examples for these discrepancies, all of which are theories not based in evidence, and many of which Snopes has independently debunked. Thus, we rate this claim true. Walters did not immediately return a request for comment. And so we wonder, I've said this for a long time, people will look back on this moment in history, and there won't be, well, MAGA had a point. It's going to be clear, unequivocal, black and white. There was a right side of history, there was a wrong side of history, and those advocating for democracy were on the right side of it, and there was this destructive movement against it. It's going to be simple. When we look back at other eras and there's a clear protagonist and antagonist, at the time, it wasn't always that way, right? There were people advocating for the one that now we see as terrible. But sometimes through the lens of history, things become more clear. I've always said that, I believe it. Unless, which was always my caveat, they literally rewrite history, which is what they're trying to do. And what's scary is that the divisions we currently experience in our country, and increasingly a particular section of our country being further and further from empirical reality in their beliefs, that could get cemented by instilling these ideas into children's minds, believing that essentially the ultimate source of truth is Trump or whoever the next cult leader is, instead of actually learning critical thinking skills, as that superintendent said. Now, this is rich coming from the same people who says it's always the left trying to brainwash our kids.
How the turntables...
Exactly. How the turntables. I've told you before, I've seen some bizarre examples. We talked about today that priest, supposedly, if that priest were teaching kids about how some, whatever, white people need to not ever show their face some places, that would be an example of someone who's quote unquote on the left being absolutely absurd. So there are those examples. I'm sure that shows up in teaching sometimes, and inappropriate things are brought up, and people should be held accountable when that happens. But many of the examples were people just acknowledging gay. Gay's a thing. Hey, gay. You ever heard of it?
We have to keep our country gay.
Yeah. And that's a good one. And producer Cole, ladies and gentlemen.
Clean, beautiful Cole.
There he is. And now we've gone from that, which is they want to brainwash. They're trying to indoctrinate your kids. How many times we hear that? They're indoctrinating. Joe Biden wants to indoctrinate all your kids, so they'll be gay drag queens. That's what he wants. He wants gay drag queens. Have you seen Biden? He loves gay drag queens. And now they're literally teaching election lies. What would you call that? Indoctrination. Share your thoughts in the comments. Get the bonus show by clicking that join button below.